Thank you very much. I didn't understand a word, so I have no idea what ways you introduce me, but my name is Sanne, this is Nele, and this is David, and today we will take care of the seminar program for you in 3 parts. The first part is design and business. I will tell you a bit about our process, a bit about how we conduct our assignments for clients and how we apply design techniques in business cases. Then we have design in business, so we present one of our cases, and that's why David is here, because he's one of our clients, and he will tell the business perspective of one of our cases. And then we have a practical part, which is design your business, and in that we will give you a sneak peek experience of our way of working and our methods. So you will get a feel of the way we apply design techniques. So the first part of this seminar, I will tell you about design and business, about the what, why, and how. What is design and business, and how do we see that? Why do we think it's important to approach it in a designerly way? And how do we do that? So practical, how do we try to open up businesses for a designing way of thinking? Well, I'm from Muses. Muses is a user-centered design agency based in the Netherlands. We are with a team of 5. We are with 5 women. We think that works well to have a team with all women, because it's all about small details. It's a sensory way of designing in our approach. So we think it works well. And all of us, all of the team members, they have a background in technical design engineering. But we are mostly on the human side of design. And this is the reason why. In the old days, people were used to design a product. And products and innovations were mainly technology driven. So there was a new technology, there was a new material, and new possibilities were opening up. So new products could be made. So it was also logical to have that technology driven, these innovations. But nowadays, more and more services are designed, and products are not only standalone anymore. So mainly, if you design a product or you market a product, there's a service that supports that product. So products become more human. And these days, almost anything is possible. If you build in a chip or you program a software, you can add any functionality to a product mainly. So how do you make your choices then? If you want to design a new product or a new service, what do you decide upon? So what do you use as a guide, as a designer? So it's going towards product-user interaction more and more. So how do users use products? Why do they want to use your product? Do they use it the way you thought they were going to use it, or do they do different things with it? And even their context starts to become important. So where do they live? How is their family built up? What are their friends? How did they get up in the morning? Are they happy or are they sad? So it all influences the way they use your product or service. And that's also what we take into account if we design a product. So the vision of us as an industrial design engineering company is we want to understand people's motivations. We want to understand what drives people. Why do they get up in the morning? So rational facts come to life, and solutions we design become more meaningful. They actually get meaning to the people we design for, the users we envision. But what we see with many of our clients and the companies we work for is that organizations these days, they focus on the what and they focus on the how. So they know that there's a problem, so they see that, or they see a certain trend or development, and they try to solve it, or they try to grasp that opportunity and to design something for that. But we notice that they often forget the why. Why would people want something like that? Why do people want to use your new product or service you're going to innovate? So companies try to move from the what to the how often. So what we mean with that is many companies, they invest in research. So they invest in data about the market, their competitors, how many people would want something or dislike something. So they have all sorts of numbers, but it's all rational data. And what many organizations do is based upon this rational data, they're going to try to solve the problem. So they're going to try to come up with solutions. But it's very difficult if you do it, because it's like you don't know the motivation of people behind that. So you have no idea how to rate your rational data. And then they do involve the user, but it's in a later stadium. So they do involve the user, but try to evaluate it afterwards. So once they already designed a product or a service, they are going to involve their envisioned users, and they're going to evaluate it afterwards. That's a bit of a guess, because you have no idea whether your users, because you did not see them before, whether they would like your product or buy your product or service. So we are not saying that you should change your process or the ingredients of your process at least, but what we are doing for our clients is we reverse that process. So we're not saying take different ingredients, but we're saying do it in a different way, in a different order. So we help them involve their users as soon as possible in the process. So many of our clients already have lots of data, so they know many things about their users, about the market, about the competition, about the trends, the developments, technological innovations, and we take that into account as a basis. And then we try to add value to that rational data. So we're going to reveal the motivations of people, their wishes, their dreams, their future ideas, and we're going to bring the facts to life. So we try to make the facts have meaning and add value. And then it's far easier to bring some change, to design a solution, because you know why people do certain things. For example, to give you an example, if people... In Holland there was a research that many elderly did use the money machines. So they got money from the machines, and they did not visit a physical bank anymore. So the solution in Holland was to get rid of more banks, because it was cheaper to get everything automatic. But if you look at the motivation and the why, then they saw that elderly, they were actually having their debit card, and they were having their PIN code on it written, and they were really scared to use it, and they did not know what to do, so they were like shaking to try to get their money out. So the rational data might say or show different developments. Their motivation might show different. So it's really important to know why people do certain things. And then it's possible to go back again and to evaluate your product. So did I translate it the right way? Did I have the right solution, come up with the right product idea or service idea? And then you can also measure your success. You can evaluate and reflect with your users whether they think it's the right thing you came up with as a designer. So how do we do that? Mainly in our processes, and we work for all different types of clients, but I will talk about that later. We mainly have 3 steps. We go from the what to the why, so we try to add value to their rational knowledge and data they already possess. Then we try to bring change. We design solutions for them based upon the motivations of the users we involved. And then we reflect with them. So we try to evaluate the new product solutions and service solutions, whether they are right and whether they fit the user's needs as well. And if your process is changing, so if you reverse the order of involving people and taking certain steps, it's also very important to realize that at that point, at least in our processes, your users are guiding your future strategy. So they're guiding the way you work. And if you decide to do that, then you also need different techniques, different research techniques and different design techniques to reveal those needs and wishes and to go a step further than you were used to in the old days. So how do we do that, reveal the wishes and needs of the users, so add the value to the rational data? Well, we have a research technique for that. It's developed partly at the Technical University of Delft. And it's called context mapping. I don't know whether any one of you ever heard of that, but it's mapping the context, so making a map of the context. And then context is not only a surrounding, but it's everything connected to that. So it's people's experiences, people's wishes, people's motivations to do certain things, the people around your user, where do they work, do they go to school, what are their houses, how do their houses, what do they have kind of products, what do they like, where do they go in a day. So everything that is related to that person's personal life. And to reveal those needs, and we're talking about latent needs, so sometimes these are needs that people don't even know they possess, so it's hard to tell about those needs. So we prepare them very carefully. We start with selecting a select group of people, so every project we involve around 6 to 8 people, so it's very little, but it's also just to inspire the design team. And sometimes we are the design team, sometimes the company has their own design team. So you're looking for exploration, you're looking for inspiration. So the people we ask to participate in our projects, we give them individual packages. And these packages are triggering, and they're based on self-reflection. So it's like we ask them to keep a diary for a week or something to report about their daily life. And these are subjects that they think are really usual or obvious for them. But for us, it's very inspiring. For example, what they do in a day. We let them map their entire day. You know, where do you go? What time do you get up in the morning? What time do you go to bed? When do you check your email? When do you have a break? When do you meet your friends? All kinds of small things that can inspire you and can also be really relevant for the product or service you're going to develop for these people. Now, to give you an example, this is an example of one of the individual packages we give to our users. The idea is that this is a booklet in which they keep their diary for a week. We provide them often with a camera and ask them to make pictures of their daily life. So we get a good real image of their the way they do things and the things they think are important. We give them triggering sets with pictures, with words. So we don't steer them, but we try to inspire them to think about certain subjects. And for example, this data set, we design that together with our clients. So many of our clients, and actually all of our clients, have many assumptions already about the user group. So, and that's very human. Everyone, thinks that they kind of know the group they're designing for. For example, if you're designing for elderly, that you have a certain image in your head. And all our assumptions and things we think we already know, we put in here, or things we think are very important. For example, if we think, well, safety must play an important role in the lives of our users, Then we put safety in, or danger, for example. So they have the ability to think about all the subjects we think are important, but we're not steering them. Well, this is an example of the pictures. Well, this is just a small selection of pictures people make for us. So this project was about musicians, and I'm going to present this case at the end of this presentation. And we asked them to make pictures, but we asked them in a very indirect way. So, for example, we asked them to photograph something they're proud of. Or in this case, we asked them to photograph the heart of their band, their music band. So everyone is going to photograph the thing he or she thinks is very important. So we let it be very open, and that's how we get their real perspective. And then after they filled in this diary for a week, we bring them together in a group session. And we use generative techniques. So this is based on the theory of making something and then talking about it. So you have the ability to form your own story and then present it to the other participants. And they have their own perspective, so they can add stories to that. And this way you get a really rich perspective of all the different participants, and also what are the common thing and what are the differences within this group. And it's always about a subject that connects them. So, for example, all musicians together, or all women that shave, or all men that shave. So we have different groups of different subjects. And then what we do is the companies we work for, we ask everyone who's interested in the subject to take place behind the scenes. So we have a room like this, where we have live streaming of the group session we facilitate. And then everyone can watch their group of users to present their artifacts and their stories. And then after the session, they come together and they have time to chat. But it's on a different level, because our participants are highly sensitized then. So they are sensitive to all different kinds of stories than when you, for example, have a traditional interview. Well, the theory behind this is that if you ask people bluntly, like you ask people, so what do you want in the future? It's really difficult for people to tell. Sometimes they think they know it, but maybe it's based upon something that is not relevant. So it's really difficult for them to tell their actual story. And if you ask people the blunt question of what do you want in the future, you're asking it about this, in the here and in the now. So people can easily tell you about how they experience or how they would want something to happen now. But that's sometimes not what you want to know, because if you're talking about innovation, you want to design something for the future. So what we do with our techniques, with our individual packages, we bring them from the here and now back to their memories, back to the past. So we ask them, what happened then? And why do you experience certain things this way? And, well, in the past, what did you, for example, experience then, and why? So we ask them all things about the past. And then, if they know why they experience certain things in a certain way in the present, because they have an image of their past, they can easily tell you how they would want to have that differently in the future. So it's much easier for them if you guide them in steps to talk about the future. And that's what you want to know as a designer, but also as a company working on innovation. And then the last step, then you can go back to the present and translate this into something concrete, like a product or a service that's being used today, with the limitations of, for example, the company or the context you're working in. And then why do we do it with the research techniques we use is based upon this scheme. So if you want to know what people say and what people think, you're in the upper level. So it's about explicit knowledge, and it's easy to do that with interviews. But if you want to know what people know, feel, and dream, So if you want to reveal their latent needs, you have to use different techniques, different research techniques. So then you come to the generative technique. So if you let people create something, let them reflect on their own lives, then you come to the tacit and latent knowledge. And especially if you combine all of those, then you get a really rich image of your user group and your market. So mostly these upper two parts are already conducted by many companies. So that's also what we use as a basis. But what many people don't do is to ask about what people know, feel, and dream already. So then you have a richer image of the future of your user group. So and then we start to design. So we have a longer starting period in our processes before we start designing. And the way we design is from all the stories we gain from people, so all the life stories of people, we come up with design directions. So we try to have some design directions that are relevant for our users, but also relevant for the company we work for. So the people who are going to produce or launch the product or service. And then we translate it into services and products. And we do this in co-creation. So we do this with a team of, for example, people from the company of all different departments, preferably, if possible, but also with people from the user group. So if people want to reflect immediately on the translated design directions, we ask them to come in, step into the team, and also help us to co-create. And this is an example for because the data you get is very diverse and varied. And this is an example of a persona. I don't know if anyone is familiar with a persona, but that's like a representation of your user group. So you have many different people in your user group, and you have many different stories. But to make sure that you can work with this, because it's kind of a lot, and it's hard to prioritize. So what's important and what's not. So if you put it in a fictitious or a kind of a it's not a real person, but if you put it into this person that you create, and in every project we have like 3 or 4 of these people, it's easier to design for them. So for example, if this is Anne, and you're designing a product, it's easier to think of Anne and what she thinks of your design than to think of the entire user group, because then it's harder to imagine and step into their shoes. And then if we come up with some designs, we ask our user groups for feedback, and we optimize together with them. So in every stage of our processes, we involve the users we envision for the product or service we're going to design. And we use visualizers to make these drawings while people talk. So because it's very hard sometimes to know whether you mean the same thing. So are you on the same level? So we use visualizers that draw our stories for us. So the projects we do are for many different companies, and probably you won't recognize these because these are all Dutch companies. But we work in 3 fields. We improve existing services and products for companies. So if they already have an idea or they already have a portfolio of good products, we try to bring the human side into that and to improve wherever we can to fit the user's needs better. But we're also designing new products and services for our companies. So that's like a radical innovation. And we try to guide the future. So we set out a strategy to serve their users better, to see what they can do different in the future to serve their user groups based upon their needs. So to give you an example of one of our cases, of one of our design cases we did recently, This is for Alpine, which is a company who makes earplugs for hearing protection. And their question to us was, they had one of their user groups, they were musicians, but not professional musicians, but semi-professional, people who play in a band. And they were not buying their products, so they were an important user group for them, but it was not working for some reason, and they could not find out why. So they were designing new products for them and new, very technological products, but somehow they did not buy their products. So the request was hearing protection for musicians, and what we did, our first step was try to empathize with those people. Who are those musicians? What are their motivations? What drives them? What do they think there is important? Why is music so important for them? How do they make music? Where do they make music? With whom do they make music? So all those questions we asked to, well, for example, these people. This was one of our participants, and that was one of our participants. And we formed a band. We had one of our participants was a singer, one of our participants was a drummer, and etc. So we had one entire band of, I think, 7 people in this case. And we let them create things for us and tell us about their life as a musician. Well, some of the main insights from this project was that they thought if they use hearing protection, it influences the entire band. So either everyone uses hearing protection or earplugs, or none. So the strange thing is, if you sell it individually, but it's not an individual product, because if one of the band members uses earplugs, he starts playing louder. So the others actually don't have the benefit of it. So one of the people were saying, I've been in a situation where only the drummer was wearing earplugs, and then you notice him playing louder. So he's taking that individual decision to use hearing protection, but it's actually damaging the other band members. So then they decide not to use it. So it's either everyone or none. Another one is that the CEO of the company we worked for was thinking that everyone knew at what dB limit, decibel limit, you were damaging your ears. But actually, many musicians didn't know. They had no idea where that limit was, and even if they know the limit, they didn't know at what point. So what sound was what dB. So it was 80 dB, and one of our participants said, well, I think everything above 100 dB is bad, right? So the CEO was watching the session, and he was like, what is this? Everyone knows that it's 80 dB, but they just don't know. And another thing was that every user group of this company wanted to mute the sounds they were hearing. So, for example, if you're riding a motorbike, or if your partner is snoring, or if you're in an airplane, or if your child is crying, or anyone's child is crying, so you just want to mute the sound, except for musicians. They want to hear the sound, so they don't want to mute it. So what they said is that they feel isolated when wearing earplugs, like they cannot fully experience what is happening around me. And they think their sound is beautiful, their music is beautiful, so they want to hear the quality better instead of try to protect their ears. So with these insights, and there were many more insights, but these were the main 3 we picked out, and we decided to design based upon these insights. So what we did for them is, at the one hand, we didn't change the product they were making, because they were used to try to improve the technological part of the earplugs. But actually nothing was wrong with the earplugs. They were working perfectly. They were muting the sound, they were making the quality better, but they were just not communicating it right. So what we did is we made this band set. Like, if you buy earplugs, don't buy it individually if you're in a band. But if you think it's important to protect your ears, buy a set for the entire band. So either everyone's using it or none is using it. they thought it was really important to show their band's identity. So we designed this service for them that they could make their personal cover for if they bought this band set with actually an image of their band on it. And we tried to help them to guide the future. So instead of their slogan was Alpine music, hearing protection, we changed it into Alpine pure music, pure sound. And it's a very small change, but it makes a big difference for this user group because they are addressed in the way they, on their motivation, so on the way they are driven and the way they think music is important and sound is important. So this is basically what I wanted to tell about the way we design products and services and about our process. And what we're going to do now is, one of our cases is for E.ON, and E.ON is an energy provider, a supplier in Holland. In Holland, it's I think it's maybe different than from Latvia, but in Holland, everyone buys their own energy. So there are several energy companies, but David will tell more about that. And they wanted to design a new service or to service a user group in a different way. And we did a project for them together with them to help them with this. So first David will tell about E.ON as a company and about their request to us. And then Nele will tell what we did. So she will present the case and how we designed new services for them.
All right. While the last of you are looking for their seat, I will shortly introduce myself. My name is David Vlot. I work for E.ON Benelux. E.ON, as one of the participants noted during the break, is a very large energy company. I don't own the company, just to be clear. I just work for them. But I am working in Holland. And I realized that there might be a slight cultural difference between Holland and the country where we are now. So I want to make sure that you guys know that it's perfectly fine to ask questions during presentations, at least with me, but I think also for Nele and Sanne. So please, in case you don't understand something or you're just wondering about something, just raise your hand and I will immediately ask you or answer your question. Okay? So I want to tell you quite briefly about my company. First of all, I will start on, let's say, the global scale, and then I will zoom into my own business and then transform into, let's say, the steps that we have been making with the help of Muses. So first of all, on a global scale, E.ON is a company that was originally a fusion between two state-owned companies called Veba and Viag in Germany. These companies decided to go together. At the moment, the market, the energy market in Germany was privatized. So that means they used to be owned by the state, and now it is a privately owned energy company. Of course, with such a fusion comes the desire for marketing or branding, and E.ON was thought of as a very catchy, loaded, and energy-driven name. The official reasoning behind it you can find here. It's supposed to awaken associations with the Greek word aion, which means eternity. E obviously stands for energy, and on symbolizes a movement towards the future. This obviously is a very important move. We want to be an energy company that is here now, but that is also here in the future. We want to be part of this world for a very long time still. And the things we are developing nowadays also help to achieve that goal. So then some facts. Again, it was created then in June of 2000. We are one of the world's largest investor-owned energy companies. A couple of years ago, we were the largest, but we are competing with one or two others. We are operational in more than 30 countries. We are not operational in Latvia, unfortunately, but who knows what the future might hold. We have loads of customers. If you add them all up, it would be somewhere around 30 million, I think, nowadays. Here it says 26, but yeah, that shifts a bit. I have about 90,000 colleagues. I don't know all of them, but at least some part. We did about 93 billion billion euros of sales in 2010. Our new strategy is called Cleaner and Better. What that exactly means, I will go into a little bit later. And obviously, also, we as a big company have a CO2 reduction target, which we find rather challenging. So then how is the company built up? Obviously, in such a large company with so many countries that we are operational in, you need a firm structure to manage that all. Here you can see that we have several regional units, obviously depending on the region that you are in, but we also have some global units which kind of cross-section the organogram. There's some units that focus completely on generation. They are split up per generator type. So for instance, if you burn coal in order to make electricity, then you're in generation group 1. And if you use gas to make electricity, then you're in generation group 2. We have a different unit for renewables, so wind turbines, solar panels, and these kind of things. And then we do some trading and we do some gas, global gas transfers, and they are in separate groups as well. And finally, of course, some support functions, IT, and these kind of things. So then this rather confusing picture is all our locations in the greater Europe. As you can see, the most east is in Russia and the most west is somewhere in Portugal. These are all the plants that we have, so the real energy creators or electricity creators. And as you can see, we have all the technologies represented here, from coal to gas to oil to nuclear, and also the more sustainable ones, such as water, wind, and solar. Now, some more numbers. Kilowatt hour, I hope it's a recognizable unit of measure. We did a lot of kilowatt hours and it's still growing. Gas sales also translated to kilowatt hours, rather growing. Sales is here in billions of euros, and employees obviously didn't exactly stay the same between 2009 and 2010, but obviously a lack of figures there. Now and then finally, getting back to the Cleaner and Better strategy, obviously we as a big company also have to change nowadays, the economic crisis, macroeconomic trends and these kind of things. We are focusing more on, let's say, our expertise and less on our bank account, which basically means that we don't invest as much as we did in the past, but we are trying to use all the experience and all the knowledge we have about running plants and technologies and try to sell that as added value to customers that are looking for that. If you look at it from a geographical scale, obviously we are now in Europe, and the focus is now becoming more global. So we are looking at Asia and South America for possible opportunities, which is a big step for us. It's the first time we will leave the continent, so you can imagine. If you look into the company itself, you will see that a lot of performance projects are taking place, cost optimizations, and just becoming more effective in what we do. So that was the global story. Now, if I zoom in a bit more to the Benelux. Benelux is an abbreviation for 3 countries, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. They are all quite small. I think if you add them all up together, then they are still smaller than Latvia, so we're not that big. But at least we have some good business there. And if you look at the Netherlands specifically, you will see that the market is completely liberalized. So there is a lot of competition going on in the energy market, and we are therefore still quite proud to present that we end up with these figures here. In Holland and Belgium and Luxembourg, I therefore have 800 colleagues. I also don't know all of them, but at least a lot more than on a global scale. We produce some electricity, some heat as well, and we sell some gas. And obviously we sell added value to our customers where possible. But I will go into that a bit later. Now, then our locations in the Benelux, also mostly power plants. These here are all, as we call them, city plants, which basically means that they make a little bit of electricity and a lot of heat for a heating grid that is laid out in these different cities of Delft, The Hague, Leiden, and Rotterdam. We also have a big coal-fired power plant over here, which is quite old nowadays, and therefore right next to it we are building a new one with the latest technology and the most innovative plant that we own as E.ON in the world. So that's a very innovative thing. And we have a couple of sales offices in Brussels, Eindhoven, and in Rotterdam. This is my office, actually, here. Now, the final zoom-in step is the one towards the business-to-business sales department, because that's where I work. I sell products to businesses, energy products, energy-related products. And I just quoted some statements here. In the Netherlands, E.ON gets recommended by its customers twice as often if you compare it to our competitors and their customers. That means that we are doing something right. Our customers like us, and they are not afraid to tell their business partners about us. We are the market leader in Holland for supplying electricity to the big companies. For instance, oil companies or chemical companies. They have a large electricity usage, and we are market leader there with about 25 to 30% of the market share. But if you look at the smaller segments, and that's obviously where our challenge lies, we are not market leader, and we are trying to become that. Finally, just like I mentioned before, our image in Holland is mostly painted by the fact that we are building a new coal-fired power plant in Rotterdam. This is obviously seen as not such a sustainable thing to do, and therefore it sort of blurs our image. Now, then the products that we sell, obviously the normal electricity products. I won't go into all the details, but you buy electricity in different ways with different price constructions. The same goes for gas. And if you look here at the right side, then you find the more interesting, at least I think, products for an energy company, and that is energy-related services. So we are no longer only selling electricity and gas. We are selling consultancy. We are selling retail products such as solar panels or small wind turbines. We are selling benchmark services or lighting solutions, for instance, LED lights. Everything that a customer wonders about or has a problem with that is slightly related to energy, he should immediately think of E.ON. That's at least the philosophy. And we should be able to answer that question. This is completely different from just selling kilowatt hours. It's much more becoming a service or a consultancy company than as opposed to the old commodity-based electricity seller. Now, then this is the result of some market research that we did. Why do customers prefer E.ON? Well, apparently we are flexible. We work with one team and one contact person. So if you own a business and you become our customer and you want to be in contact with us, you don't call E.ON, but you call David. So it's a personal-based relationship, which obviously makes the step to call much lower because you know who you will talk to and who will help you out. We have professional advice, well, I hope so, international group, but local expertise. So we have a lot of knowledge in the background that we can use in order to help you locally. obviously, we have the option of providing your energy for 100% sustainable usage. And we prefer a long-term relationship as opposed to a short-term one. And that's actually the focus for today. Because we think by knowing your customers better, you can much more easily get a long-term relationship with them as opposed to a short-term one. So that's the company. Are there any questions about?
From where do you buy gas, oil, and oil?
Well, in Holland, as said, we have a liberalized market. And for gas, there is a market platform where suppliers and buyers meet. Basically, there are brokers in between, just like a financial market. So anyone that has a gas source puts the gas on the platform, and then anybody that wants to sell the gas or buy the gas can go to that platform and take it. So physically in Holland, we don't get gas from the ground. We just buy it from others.
And from which countries are?
Some is from Russia. Some is from ourselves. We are a huge gas country. So especially if you look at the map again here, let's say this part, there's one huge gas bubble under this part of the country. And we've been exploiting that already for hundreds of years, but it's still big. So we can be autonomous on gas. But obviously, if the Russians provide it to us cheaper, then we will use that first. Right? Thank you.
So
any others?
You can put a little dot on your map where it is Latvia located. So the owners of Latvia's gas company.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. These are the things that are happening.
47%, not
Okay. Well, good. They don't tell me everything. Any other questions? No? Okay. So then I will now go into, let's say, going from being a supplier, which is the traditional role that an energy company has, towards becoming a strategic partner for your customers. And this is really the essence of the transformation that we are in now in Holland in the business-to-business market. Because when you are a supplier, the expectations that a customer has from you are relatively low. They just want you to provide your product and then be gone. And don't mess it up. Don't hear anything from you for another year or 2 or 3. And then they will maybe come back and buy another product of you. That makes suppliers completely interchangeable. I am just as good as my competitor. I offer exactly the same product. I am not unique. There's no reason why they should come to me. Maybe because I'm close to their door or, but no real reason, which obviously is a situation that you don't want to be in as a competitive company. The focus for electricity, for instance, will then also always be on price. If I am 1/10 of a cent cheaper than my competitor, they will come to me because I'm the cheapest. And because that's the only reason that they then select their supplier form. From an Aon point of view, it's all about the basics. So if you win the contract, then you have to have your basics aligned. So you have to make sure that you can always send the bill, that the bill is always correct, that you always answer the phone when the customer is calling. All these basic professional services have to be in place, else you lose your customer. Energy, therefore, for the customer in such a relationship is a low-interest product. They don't want to spend too much time. They want to have things arranged, and they don't want to worry about it. This is a little bit in the past. Nowadays, you can become a preferred supplier if you do a bit more. So if you don't only provide your product, but also give the customer the feeling that he's made the right choice. Not only for the price, but also for what you do for him. You are still interchangeable, because if you mess it up, they will still go to a different supplier, but the expectations are shifting already, on both sides. You do the basics plus a little bit extra. energy can still be a low energy product, but you can make it a little bit more sexy. You can make it, you can make it an interesting product. It might be low interest from a cost perspective, or from, let's say, how much of my business depends on energy perspective, but you can still do innovative things. You can give them, for instance, very cool new futuristic lights. It's an energy-related service that you then provide them. You help them with reducing their energy bill. You help them with improving their image of being a modern company. But you don't go that step further. It just ends, let's say, with the gadgets. You can then become a preferred supplier. Then, one of the most difficult steps, in my opinion, is going from supplier to partner. Because in partner, there's a lot more content. You have to have mutual understanding of each other's business. So, if I would become the partner of a business-to-business customer being a bakery, I need to understand the bakery business. I need to understand what drives these people to go to their work every day. What is the most important thing he encounters every day when at his work? How do his processes work? Who are his suppliers? All these kind of things. You then become not interchangeable. Because as an energy company, if I understand the bakery company very well, then I am unique. There's no other energy company that understands the bakery. The focus will therefore always be on mutual benefits. The bakery should also understand my process and my need to be a successful company. There shouldn't be a discussion about price anymore. It should just be about the service that we can provide each other. I will always give you energy, plus I will help you to reduce your energy bill, therefore making you more profitable. And the bakery should then say, okay, but then for the energy that remains, I have no problem with giving you a price in which there is a margin for you, making your business more profitable. So it goes both ways. Energy then becomes a high interest product because the bakery needs to invest in the relationship as well. They need to understand mine and why I do what I do. You really add value to each other because the perspective that you take when looking at each other's business is obviously completely different from the one that you take yourself. Well, and then the Valhalla. When you're a partner, you can also become a strategic partner. And that means that you not only understand the current business of your customer, but also have an idea about the future of his business. You help him achieve an ideal future and therefore determine his strategy. You are in no way interchangeable because, the expectations are extremely high, so the chance for falling down from strategic partner to partner is also there. If you get it wrong, then obviously he will be disappointed a little bit. Added value is a given, cooperation and expansion is the goal. Really benefit from the relationship. Now, back to the case. Obviously, we want to become the leading energy supplier, at least in the Benelux, for the smaller segments as well. In our terminology, it's called the SME segment. SME stands for small and medium enterprises, basically all companies except for the big industrials. How do we do that? Do we just make sure that we have the lowest price and then stay in this supplier role and hope that the market chooses for us, basically, and hope that our competitors don't somehow manage to get an even lower price? Or do we try to take one step higher and become more focused on the relationship that we have with our customers? We are choosing the second. So we want to improve this relationship. We therefore go from being a commodity sales company, commodity being just electricity and gas, much more to a service-oriented company, asking our customers what they want from us. And some will just say, hey, give me the cheapest electricity. Fine, we can do our best. But some will also say, hey, I want you to think along with me. I want you to become more my partner and help me to improve my business. Ask the question. That's really the key here. In the past, we didn't ask, we assumed. And nowadays, we are more and more going towards asking the customer what they want. So going from supplier to strategic partner. Now, nearly my last slide. Together with Muses, we did two things already. The first was called Rich Insights, which is an elective on the TU in Delft, so with students. And basically the goal of that case was to gain insights in what entrepreneurs in the hospitality sector, so restaurants, hotels, bars, these kind of companies, find valuable in terms of products and services in general. So not necessarily focused on energy. We just want to understand the customers in this sector and then adjust our products, services, way we treat them accordingly. It's not a one-on-one relationship. You also learn things that you can't use, or at least don't understand enough to use. Specifically for the hospitality branch, the result was that people in this branch, surprisingly for us, but if you look back at it, not so surprisingly maybe, enjoy personal contact. So they want to meet the person that they are buying something from. Yeah, obviously it's hard to imagine. An energy company or a sales guy for an energy company going by every bar in a city in order to convince them to become our customer. Usually bars, if they want energy, they give us a call and then we send a contract and maybe they sign. Apparently, if we would go by and introduce ourselves and explain our services or our company perhaps a bit more, at least build on that relationship, then they would be much more inclined to come to us. So that was a very interesting, in my opinion, result, and proved that we, as a big company, can't decide what our customer wants or what he finds important. This was our first experience with that. It opened our eyes to just asking the question. We were so happy with that elective that we obviously decided immediately to go for the second case, focused on the slightly larger target group, the whole SME segment, so all companies in Holland, basically. That was together, obviously, with Muses and some of our potential customers. They were used in the case study and in the things that Muses did in order to figure out what an entrepreneur in general, independent of which segment he is in, finds important. So what drives him? Why does he go to work? Why does he have a smile on his face when he goes to work? The results obviously are highly confidential, but here are still some summaries. We got insights in the things that are happening in that segment. Obviously, we as a company are not in that segment. We are a big industrial. So we don't know what is happening in the market there. We don't know how fierce the competition is. We don't know the effect of the economic crisis on these type of companies. We don't know anything. We just know that they all need electricity, fortunately. What we found out is that they have a certain view of energy companies in general, and it's not very good. They actually find these kind of companies rather intimidating, unfair, not matching with their needs. All these kind of negative image factors were discovered. It's fortunately not only on large energy companies, but also on large companies in general. They just don't feel that they are listened to enough. They feel that they are small and the big suppliers are big, and they don't care about the small guy. They just care about making money. And of course, from some perspective, that is the case, and that will never change. However, you can still invest in that relationship and try to reduce that view that they have. We got some clear do's and don'ts for service providers, or our company as a service provider in the SME segment, and obviously the whole theory of going from supplier to partner is also one of the results of that study. So finally, knowing and understanding the world of your customer is the single best way of improving your sales results, in my opinion. If you know your customer, then you know what he wants. Or you can at least try to match what he wants. Perhaps not always it will work, but then you should also be as dynamic as you need to be in order to shift your approach or your product or your service. Yeah, it is a new world, especially for energy companies in Holland. There are about 12 competitors in Holland, and they all sell exactly the same electricity, the same gas. So you need to become unique in a way. If you're not unique, there's no reason for a customer to pick you. That was my story. I now will give the word to Nele to tell you about, let's say, the Muse's perspective on this case. If you have any questions, please. Yes?
As I understand, the clients of yours are very busy people. What was the motivation for them? What kind of motivation did you give to them to motivate to participate in this brainstorming?
Well, funnily enough, we promised nothing, and we just asked them. I think we didn't even mention E.ON's name when we asked them, did we?
Not at first, I think.
No, it was during the. Yeah. Okay. So basically, we just asked to be completely clear, and it was surprising that some of them just said yes.
I think one thing that happened there was already what David just mentioned, putting a face to the company.
Yeah.
Just calling somebody like personally on the phone, or even visiting somebody, or using our personal networks to find participants, to make sure that it was not just about doing research for a company, but about providing some service, well, from us to them and from them to us. So we actually already try to meet that way of working.
Yeah. And I think the key in these ways, because we always have to motivate participants to participate in our research, and it's all quite time consuming, so you're asking quite a lot. But if you address them on their expertise, so for example, these entrepreneurs were addressed on how they run their company, and they love to talk about that. They really love that. So you're addressing them at the subject
close to their heart.
Yeah, close to their heart. So that's the crux. I think that's the crucial element in all of our projects.
I think if we would go to these entrepreneurs and ask them, hey, do you want to answer some questions about energy, then the result would be much less. I mean, they wouldn't be as much interested. But if you ask them, hey, we are interested in your motivations in your business about being an entrepreneur, or, then it's already much more attractive for them. Yeah. No problem. Okay.
So David sort of explained from a global perspective onto more of the SME perspective what he is working on within E.ON, and I will tell you about what exactly we did, what we conducted for them in order to fulfill, at least try to fulfill the first step of becoming a partner or a strategic partner for the small and medium enterprises in the Netherlands. It is, at least within the Netherlands, of course I don't know about Latvia, but it's a very large group of companies. As David said, their most important clients now, or the biggest share they have, is with the really big companies. But in the Netherlands, the SMEs are about, I think, 80 or 90% of the group of companies. So it's a really interesting group, but it's also a very varied group. David was already talking about bakeries, but there is retailers in there, there is factories, there is service providers, there is companies with 1 or 2 employees, but there's also companies up to 250 employees, because that is the range of companies. So we're talking almost any company in the Netherlands when we're talking about SME. So the start of the project was actually how can E.ON serve SME better. So they knew that there were a lot of companies within this group, and therefore it was interesting. They already knew some things about, some groups, or mostly facts, but for example about the hospitality business we knew more because of the project that we did with the elective. But now we were sort of challenged to map out the world of the SME. You put it quite nicely in your presentation, but it's like, the whole world of companies in the Netherlands, actually. And to link it a little bit to Sanne's presentation that you saw this morning, so we already knew a lot about the what, but now we were interested to see the why behind the motivations of these entrepreneurs. What are their needs, and what are the real people behind those companies? Who are the people that decide to do or have a contract with an energy provider like E.ON? And how can then, when we know those needs and when we know those experiences and we know who those entrepreneurs are, how can we improve the customer service that E.ON provides? And are there maybe even new service opportunities that arise when we know those people better? Well, since it's such an extremely diverse group of companies and of entrepreneurs, we had to make some division between those people. We needed to decide, are we going to involve certain branches, for example, the bakeries, or are we going to do it more in general? And in order to create the best link to the situation within E.ON at this moment, where it's actually all one thing, I think. Companies are companies, and that's it. No different branches within that. We decided to link it to something that they use at E.ON as the way to make a difference between one group and the other, which is, of course, the amount of energy and gas, but the amount of energy that people buy. And the interesting thing with most of the SME companies is that because of the low amount of energy they need, they're actually sort of put in the group of the households. So they are not considered a real company, actually, by E.ON, which maybe is already a first insight, that you don't really treat those entrepreneurs as being real companies. So we made actually this division between companies that use quite little energy and companies that use, not as much as the real big clients, but quite a lot of energy. And Muses as a company has already been doing a lot of other research for other clients into SME companies. And something that we discovered is that when it comes to the amount of personnel that a company has, there's also a really clear division to be made, at least with the companies in the Netherlands. Because there's like the small starting companies, or companies that stay small because of the business that they are in maybe, and they have like from about maybe 2 or 3 employees up to about 15 employees. And then there's like a gap or a transformation thing happening within a company, because when you grow above like 15 or 20 employees, you need to have managers all of a sudden. But a manager cannot really manage only one person. So there's like a need for a bigger growth at that point. So we decided to make a division between the kind of small companies which are stable and the bigger companies from 50 up to about 200 employees. Because that was what we saw in our other research, is a very clear division and a really different kind of SME company. Because here, for example, the entrepreneur himself make most of the decisions, whereas in the upper two groups, there's, for example, an employee specifically assigned for dealing with contracts with service providers. So that's quite a difference. And then there's also the group that, well, just works on their own. I don't know what the English word for that is, but it's like a specific group, at least in the Netherlands, a growing group also, but they were left out of account in this research. Sanne said that we usually involve 6 to 8 people, but because we have these 4 groups now within this research, we involve 24 entrepreneurs. And actually the question that was asked to David before about how did you get people motivated to participate in this research was a very relevant question, because we were actually thinking of doing a group session within all these 4 groups, but eventually we could only do a group session within this group with less personnel and less energy use, because they were most easy to motivate to participate, and therefore we could find a solid group at one moment to do this research together. But in the other groups, it was, because of the low interest in energy, more difficult to find participants, and therefore we did generative interviews instead of a generative session. So we adapted the techniques a little bit to that situation. Well, in our approach, we first did this research within those groups, then sort of caught all the insights in infographics, which I will show you later. And eventually we used co-creation with E.ON employees to make sure that the people who were, well, eventually going to work with the results and who were also having contact with the entrepreneurs would really feel the data, feel the insights, and also get to know those people behind those companies and behind those numbers. By the way, if you have any questions, like in between my presentation, because you already heard a lot of theory from Sanne, so you might be able to, you know, relate to that and think about my story. Don't hesitate. Feel free to interrupt me and ask a question. So then, a very important first step of the projects that we do is, what kind of focus do we need? What exactly is the question that we are going to be asking our participants? To give you an example, Sanne mentioned elderly and mobile phones, I think, before. Often a company asks us a question with an idea of the solution already in their mind. For example, what kind of mobile phone do elderly need? But then within like the focus that we already designed together with our clients, it's important to see, is it really a mobile phone that those people need, or is it maybe communication that you want to talk about? And that you need to see whether communication for elderly is best done by a mobile phone or maybe in some other way. So that's also what we did here. And we try to decide what way to prepare the people, which is like the outer ring, the sensitizing with the packages and the booklets that we provide our participants with. For example, for you as an entrepreneur, what are important elements of business services? And why are those elements important? For you as an entrepreneur, what is essential to your company? And again, why is that essential? Because that's what we want to know most about. Because if you know the why, then you also know how to solve or change the situation or meet the need that you discover. But also, what's your daily work like? somebody who owns a bar, for example, might start at 4 in the afternoon and work until 4 in the night. So if salespeople at Aon then start calling for contracts at 9 in the morning, that's a mismatch. And it's just a small thing, but it's a very important thing, because then, well, you're never going to be able to get that partner feel that you want as a company. And that goes for daily work, but also throughout the year. Are there maybe certain periods within your yearly planning that you're really busy with preparing for, something that your company does? We, for example, try to get an ice making factory to participate in this research, and we called him, I think, in March or April to ask him whether he wanted to participate, and he said, yes, I would like to, but maybe in November. I just cannot do it now because this is the busiest period of the year for me. And that's also stuff that's important to know as a company if you want to, provide services to those entrepreneurs. And then, of course, we wanted to prepare them on the subject of what is important for your company in the past and now, but also what do you expect in the future. Aon, for example, has this strategy for greener and better? Cleaner and better. Well, there's a lot of focus on green also within other companies. So one part of the research was also to focus on what is green then for those entrepreneurs. How do they see that? And do they think it is as important as we expect it to be? So that was just preparation. And then during the session, we try to get a feel for how the session and the interview, how do you differentiate as a company? What is your perspective on energy? But also, what is your perspective on large service providers in general? In the Netherlands, for example, telephone companies are, sort of same size, same way of working. Insurance companies as well. So we try to get a broader view in order to be able to get the right insights, not just on the energy business, but on service business as well. What kind of relation do you have with those service providers, for example, and what kind of relation would you like to have? So the whole theme was actually business services, but we try to get a really broad idea of what the context for such an entrepreneur would be, and also what kind of services he or she likes to supply himself, and what kind of relationships they have with their own customers, and how do they compare to the relationships they have with their service providers. So we gave them a package that looked like that. So it's comparable to the one that Sanne showed you already this morning. Only the questions that are in there are, focused on service, energy, and being an entrepreneur. Here you see some of the entrepreneurs that were brought together in a session, working on their collages, on the things that they create, and then telling about it. And here you see one of the people who participated, and, for example, a picture he took when we asked him to photograph the heart of the company, and the way he thinks about his customers. He says, the customers are my income, so they are the center of his business. Whereas, at Aon, selling energy is maybe more the center of the business. And, it's interesting to compare it and to see what you can do with the difference that is there and how you need to work around it or solve it. So to give you... one other thing first. We made a lot of short movies because normally when we do a session, we invite employees of our client to watch this session and to be able to hear all the stories and the experiences from the participants firsthand. But since we changed the approach from sessions to interviews for, 3/4 of the project, we made little clips with first insights to be able to show to employees at Aon to make sure that they also got to know the real people behind all the insights that we were gathering. So we translated 2 of those movies. The first one is about actually the focus that David was talking about when you're just a supplier. There's a huge focus on price for energy in the Netherlands. And, competitors of Aon are actually literally screaming about that they have the best price. So, that's how entrepreneurs also get an idea of what the energy world is like. And at the same time, most of the energy companies in the Netherlands assume that people think green is more and more important. So that's what the first movie is about, how he sees that bit of the energy world actually. And then the second movie is about the fact that if you want to become a partner or even a strategic partner, that you really need to present yourself as a different brand, a different company, and a company with added value. And I think this shows quite bluntly that it's maybe not. It already works, but it's not the case yet, as it is now. Let me see. I'll start the movies. Oh, sorry. Wait. I wanted to make the thing disappear.
Even pauze.
Wacht even. Nee. Hij gaat vanzelf weg, maar ik dacht dat het sneller ging. So this movie, it's actually just one little story that this hotel owner told us, but it shows several things. It shows that the focus on price is maybe not that interesting for him because he is focusing on meeting this green key standard, and therefore he is analyzing all the different aspects of his company on how green it can be. Maybe he needs help with that, or some support or services he could use for that. But I think the most important insight is that the combination of saying that you are selling green energy and doing it for the lowest price resulted in a feeling of betrayal for this man, because he started to buy green energy and he got a lower price than he had before. And he really felt like this is impossible, something is wrong. Maybe I've been betrayed the past few years and I've paid too much. On the other hand, it could also tell Aeon that they need to sell their green energy more expensive because people expect it anyway. So you can, get a lot of different insights and ideas also from a small story like this. And then the other one.
Zakelijk niet veel meer dan het regels. Je gaat niet bedenken alles hebben. Alles hebben. Je spreekt met de een en die mag niks over zeggen, gaat het aan. We doen dit en dat mag niet, want dat is het. En ja, dat is nou helemaal recht. Ja. Altijd regels. Nee, heel veel van kunnen ze niks. Nou moet ik zeggen. Dat is een zakelijk niet zo leuk. En daar kom ik mee om nog maar. Dat moet ik sowieso. En toen werd ik toen ook druk. Toen dacht ik, nou, dat is mee. Waar ik wat aan heb. En dat vond ik ook dus of dat in zijn algemeenheid of heel specifiek was, dat weet ik niet. Maar dat... Ik weet niet meer waar het voor was. Nou, ik kan wel even zien, want daar heb ik uiteindelijk een druk bij gesloten. Dat was met Eon. Oh, echt? Ja. Dat is toch positief? Eon.
So what this movie shows is that Aeon is actually doing a lot right already, but he does not connect it to the brand. He said, oh, I'll look it up, because we made a deal, of course, because I could negotiate with this guy on the phone. And then he says, hey, yeah, that was for Aeon. What company did you do your research for? So it was really striking, actually, that there's something that the company already does. It's actually the thing that David mentioned before, that you're not calling a company when you call Aeon, but you're calling a person. You have a personal number for, the person that you have made the deal with. And this is something that this entrepreneur and others as well really value, and he just loves to be like on the same level and be a negotiating partner. But at Aeon, they don't know how much this is valued, and so they don't make the most of it, actually. So also some insights that, can actually really easy benefit the company without making too many changes. Yeah. So we talked to quite a lot of people during this research. Usually we maybe do 6 to 8 people or double that size, but this was like 4 times as big. And we used infographics to sort of summarize all the information that we got from these entrepreneurs. David mentioned 5 different, sort of fields of insights that we provided them with. And I selected 3 of those fields actually to tell you a little bit about now. The first one is about what is actually going on within SME companies and what do they think is important. I think the most interesting quote that was said about that is that every SME entrepreneur has the same problem. We're too small to be big and too big to be small. And that's exactly what's also happening within E.ON, because most of these entrepreneurs are put in the household group of clients. So no service fits, actually, and that's true. Other things that are really important to them is relations. Actually, those 2 hands, they represented all about relations. They value trust with their, any service provider a lot. And actually for most of the services that they use, for example, in accountancy or IT, for example, they use preferably suppliers that are sort of the same size as they are. They're very, very proud of their company. Often they started it themselves, or their maybe fathers or grandfathers started the business, and it's something that is really them. Another very interesting insight in what SME or entrepreneurs find important is that they value specialism way more than they value price. So, all this screaming about price in service business makes them, of course, choose the lowest one. But if a company would focus on certain specialism and would meet the business of the entrepreneur by doing that, that would be something that would immediately put you on a higher level for an entrepreneur. Then, concerning the match between big service providers and an entrepreneur, what he says is that the person answering the phone from the service provider is actually the ambassador of the service provider. So, for example, outsourcing your call center to India is then maybe not such an interesting idea, because at least within this group of clients, that is something that is, considered kind of strange. And another idea that they have about big service providers is what was also shown in the last movie, is that they have a lot of rules. Everything needs to meet certain regulations, and it's very large and therefore not very flexible. And then what they are looking for is, funny enough, the same as what David and E.ON is looking for. They want a service provider that can think along with the company. The lowest level of providing a service is solving a certain problem that they have. Then the second level is to take away their worries. But the highest level that you can, reach, thank you, with such an entrepreneur is that you think along with the company and you create like a win-win situation for both of you, because that's how they like to work anyway. But on the other hand, that also requires a very different attitude from a service provider, because the knowledge that you have about this entrepreneur and his business needs to grow bigger and bigger when you move up from supplier to partner to strategic partner. And actually your knowledge about energy is important because they value specialism, but the combination with this knowledge about some people's business is actually the key to becoming strategic partners. So what an entrepreneur is looking for is actually these equal relationships. So we discovered something funny actually about Aon during the project. Something that we didn't know because we have assumptions as well. We thought Aon is this really big energy company, and they work like on a global scale, and like 85,000 people work there, and it's huge. But the funny thing is that in the Benelux, the team is, especially for B2B, kind of small. Actually, if you compare it to an SME company, it's the same. So there is a perfect match between entrepreneurs and people working at Aon, because actually they're the same, but they just don't communicate this. So we used actually the brand values of Aon to make this connection. So they stand for, besides this strategy of cleaner and better energy, their brand stands for something strong, fair, and human. And actually, the only thing that they need to do now, since they are already there, is to make this match and make sure that they communicate those strengths in the same way the SME entrepreneurs expect it from their suppliers and their partners. On the other hand, something that is really important, especially when it comes to the continuity of their business, is a reliable provider. And there, of course, those 85,000 employees and the big German energy supplier gives an entrepreneur the stability of a large energy supplier, and therefore that's a good match as well. So that's actually the first step of solving, connecting to those entrepreneurs for Aon. And then a very important second step at which we sort of finalized our project at Aon is to make sure that those salespeople and those marketing people that have the contact with these entrepreneurs know about these needs and wishes and about this vision as well. So we conducted a co-creation session in which we presented all these results and in which the employees at Aon were challenged to design services and energy products or related products and services themselves for those entrepreneurs. So here you see the really nice and young team of the Aon B2B sales, who, with the help of the visualizers that Sanne also talked about, were thinking about how to serve those entrepreneurs in the best way for a day. And that's actually what we gave to you, David, and your colleagues. And maybe you want to tell something about...
If you can go one slide back. It's so funny to see this, the woman here on the left bottom. She is indeed part of our telesales team, so she serves the SME customers normally by telephone. But coincidentally, she's also one of our most successful ones. So it's a team of about 20 people, and she sells the most. The fact is that I've never heard her say that she's too busy. So that means that she's very effective in what she does. She really knows how to sell. And what she took from, let's say, the Muses experience is that, what I also emphasized before, is it's very important to know your customer and to know his needs in order to be successful. There's no need to rush or to be fast or to push the customer very hard to sign a contract, as long as you have enough attention for the relationship. So that's one thing. The other thing is that more from a marketing perspective, so let's say the mass market approach, you see that the insights that we gained from let's say the Muses research is that we are now much more focusing our campaigns on specific target groups based on the lessons that we've learned about that target group. Where in the past we just thought, one size fits all. Aeon is the cheapest, very loud voice, and then it will sell. And now you see much more focused brand positioning, more focused campaigns, and more personal contact. So we really try to look up the entrepreneurs in an environment where they are comfortable, and we are sometimes not so comfortable.
So, as promised, we are going to give you a sneak peek experience. We have little packages for all of you, which is, well, part of the experience as well, because creating something that's, well, nice to give to somebody is part of our research techniques, actually. So I'm going to give you, all of you, one of these packages later on. And in here is some material that will guide you through the steps of our process, actually, in a very short manner. But I think, and I don't know exactly what the time is, but that we're going to have some lunch first. So after the break, we're going to do this. Introduction, I guess. As I already told you before the lunch break, we've made a little package for all of you, and we understood that some of you are, well, from a company, and some of you are students. So, well, it's actually aimed at company employees or entrepreneurs themselves. But if you are not working for a company or owning a company yourself, then I think it's good to, well, when you're working through it, which I will guide, of course, but to keep a service or a product that you really like in mind, to use that as, well, the case or the example for the package. Shall we... Are you going to join? Alsjeblieft. Here you go. You're welcome. Can I hand one to you? Oh, sorry. Oh, David will do then. Yes, you can open it.
Not yet.
Even, ja. Ja. Nog hele... Ah, sorry.
Een beetje noisy.
Ja. Wil jij nog een paar foto's maken, Tante? Wil jij nog een paar foto's maken? Oh ja, het zit in mijn tas. So, shall I tell you something about it? we wanted to give you, well, a little bit of experience with the way we work yourselves. And therefore we created this template, which consists of, well, 3 steps actually that I am going to guide you through by means of the Aeon case. What you can, well, maybe see from the package is that we use design techniques in actually every step of the process. So we design those templates, we design, well, the approach for our client, and eventually we also design a service or a product. But, well, we use those techniques in every step of the process, actually. And something that's really important, at least in the Netherlands nowadays, is that the real production of products is sort of moving away from our countries, going to China or India or, well, other places. And therefore, actually, our work as a designer also changes, because now we design, well, maybe services or maybe even processes or reorganizations, for example, within companies. So the focus of this package is design your business. And we've actually taken that quite literally to give you a little bit of insight into the way we work by designing, well, the sort of business model or setup of a company, or to use the customer's perspective to review the way you deliver your service or the way you design your or deliver your products. So the first step of this little exercise is actually to map. So that's the upper part of your template, is to map who are the stakeholders around your companies. So there's customers, probably, employees, maybe. In case of Aeon, there is selling energy right in the middle, because that's what, well, main service they provide. And then well, for the first step, the stakeholders are, for example, sales employees. Here are customers, which you can divide into B2B and more like the household clients. There's back office, well, people working there. Energy purchase and trade, the power plant, but also the infrastructure to make sure that the energy gets from the production to, well, the plugs eventually. In the Netherlands, these are separate companies, separate to the energy companies themselves. And then in step 3, we ask you to link those different stakeholders by what kind of value do they interchange. Does money go from one side to the other and the product or service go to the other side? For example, from Aeon's sales department, the sales goes to the customers, then there goes energy to the customers, but also contracts. And back go, well, questions about information or complaints. From back office, Aeon back office to customers goes the contract and bills. Back goes the money that they pay eventually every month. Then a bill also comes from the infrastructure company and money goes back. And there, well, actually the product itself, the energy, is bought at the power plants. And then so you can see that there's a lot of different stakeholders and they interchange different, well, things or values or services. So the first step of the exercise, and we will, well, walk around and help you with it, is to see if you put your own product or service in the middle, what kind of stakeholders does your company actually have? So,
and we put there are stickers in your package, and the ones, the drawn ones, you can use as inspiration. You don't have to use them, but you can use them for this exercise. So might trigger you to think of different stakeholders or different values they interchange.
have any questions, feel free to ask.
Approximately. Like you put your products and then there's everything around it. Like the employees, the production.
Maybe there's a shop in your case.
Shop or maybe even a shop or
Yeah. So and then if there's internet, there's also an internet provider and computer.
So it's like
Or the web.
Yeah, but then
yeah. So it means how everything relates to it.
Yeah. And to each other.
first you can start with all the elements there, like all the elements. So
this will be flat. Right, that's okay. Yeah.
Nee, daar waren we al een beetje bang voor. Yeah, can be customers. You can use them in any, way you think is right. You can also draw stuff yourself. We just make some to suggest the ones you can use. Is it clear to you all, or yeah? Okay. Sorry? Well, tell me. You're a designer, right? So you supply a service to clients. And there's your clients. Could you maybe work together with graphic designers or designers Yeah. If it's possible, yes. Yeah. Well, we thought about that because we know the university. Maybe it's nice to pick a product or service that you maybe use a lot or enjoy. And you would lighting, like this lighting. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe you, I don't know, use a certain cell phone light. And then you think about what kind of stakeholders does the company that provides that to you. So you're the client then actually. And the company. Yeah. Actually what the web network around this product or service, what it consists of and how it's connected. Do you need any extra explanation or? It's a big problem. Yeah, unfortunately. You just came in, right? Yeah. Okay, because what we did up till now, my colleague Sanne, she gave a presentation about how we as a design agency center our projects around the user, and well, some theory behind that. And then David, who is one of our clients, and I presented a case that we did together about how to develop better servicing from an energy company to small and medium enterprises. And that's actually what you see on screen now is the map of stakeholders for this energy company. So what we're trying to get you to experience now is how putting your customer central to your business. Are you students or business?
No, we are graduates actually. We work in the school of design.
Okay. Well, but that's sort of a service as well. How putting the customer central can change your business and improve your business. So the first step is actually thinking about what's going on right now. So if you think from the product or service perspective, what is your school like? Like what stakeholders? You said school, right? Academy. Okay. So what kind of elements does it consist of? You have the students, of course, and the teachers probably, and maybe administration, and maybe some communication. Mm-hmm. Just guessing. And it's all centered around bringing education to those students. Mm-hmm. So then in the next step, but that'll follow, we will ask you to think about what the values of those students who are actually your clients really are, and then what can change in the system if you put those students in the center instead of the education. Mm-hmm. So if you want, you can fill it out and try and see what happens. It's just a way to experience our design methods, actually. So, yeah, could be nice.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
En zo om daaruit te komen, dus opstelling van de Europese gemeenschap van die
Een paar uur volgens mij wel. Ik denk wel wat langer. Maar volgens mij maakt het niet zoveel uit. Laten we gewoon kijken tot we een beetje klaar zijn en dan... Ja.
Moet je ze per stap laten presenteren?
Nee. Nee, op het eind, zodat ze het verschil kunnen... Ja. Ja. Nee, dan kan je gewoon naar de printer halen dat spul. Ja. Je moet alleen zorgen dat het plaatje op de goede plek terecht komt. Dat is wel... Dat is ondertussen redelijk geperfectioneerd, maar het gaat nog steeds wel eens mis. Ja. Dat je de skill to fit uit moet zetten. Ja.
Ik zat nog na te denken over dat certificeringsplaat. Dat zal ik wel heel zien.
Ja, ja, ja. Ja. Ja.
Ja, klopt.
Zo'nzelfde groep bedoel je?
Ja.
Een, ja. Ja.
Dat had ik me helemaal niet gerealiseerd.
Ja.
Tenminste niet bewust.
Ja.
Nee, maar je hebt ze alleen, want dat zijn zo mensen zonder employees. Maar het plaatje zit ze alleen helemaal volgens mij helemaal breed.
Ja.
Je ziet volgens mij in alle delen van de energiegebruik. Maar ze zitten natuurlijk niet bovenaan, want daar zitten 200 employees.
Nee, dat snap ik.
Maar dan heb je ook een groep.
Ja, dat klopt.
Dus je hebt ook zaken van die minder dan 5
Ja, zo.
Ja.
Natuurlijk is dat een soort rare groep.
Ja.
Die niet vermoeid is toch. Er zijn wel kanten die
Ja, ja, klopt, ja. Ja. Super. Ja, heel erg. Het is wel super.
Ja. Waar moet je heen? Ja.
Bijvoorbeeld zeewaard moet dat.
Nee. Nee. Dat is niet waar. We zijn met iets interessants bezig. Namelijk met een onderzoek naar wat is persoonlijk. En dat is misschien wel ook een interessante segmentering. Het is ook naar aanleiding van wat Patrick zei. Toen we zeg maar de eindpresentatie hadden gegeven, toen zei hij echt zo... Hij had het niet door, maar eigenlijk was het een enorme dooddoener van het hele project. Want hij zei, dan hoeven we nu alleen nog maar uit te vinden wat dat is, persoonlijk. Toen dacht ik echt, oké, nieuw traject doen. Even een vraag beantwoorden. Nee, dat denk ik ook niet. Thanks. Yes. Well, yeah, sure. No, it's okay. Oh, later on.
Sorry?
Later on or now?
You're the boss.
What did you put in then?
I have a search thingy for a website where you can go and search for prices for products.
Yeah, to compare them. Yeah. And advertisers bring money, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The store.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you see the store.
Well, you designed this, right?
Yeah.
So you're here as well, I think?
No,
Because this is the customer.
that's the customer, yeah.
So I would...
Should I be there?
Yeah, I think so. 'Cause this is your service, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to see who you... Because you're linked to them and them, probably?
Am I?
I don't know. I just guessed.
Okay. Probably. I mean, I have to talk to them, right?
Yeah.
I have to be in touch with them.
Yeah.
That's correct. Okay.
And maybe there's more. I don't know who.
Okay.
Ja. Ja, dat is zo. Maar we vinden dat wij merken is dat
Ik ga verder. I saw some of you already going to the second part, so I'm going to quickly say a few words first. In case of the Aeon example, the contact with the customer, which is actually on this line mainly, is about selling, about contracting, and about billing. But what we think is interesting is what does a client think about this. So if you take a specific customer in mind, and we also asked the employees of Aeon to do this within our process when we started the project. What kind of things does he or she find important then? So we... Sanne.
What we think is important to remember is that a customer is not always the one paying for the service or the one using the service. So you can also look at your stakeholders map, but maybe you find out if you map all the important players in your context around your service or product, that people providing the infrastructure are actually also users of your service, or might also be someone you would like to service. So if you choose a customer here to take as a leading reference for your product or service, take the one you find the most interesting, or the one you think is using or buying or doing something with your service or product. So it's not always a customer.
Thank you, Sanne, for the addition. So this is actually what we got back from the employees at Aeon. Step into the shoes of Martin Markering, an entrepreneur. His motto of life is, assuming from the Aeon employees' perspective, that cooperation is inspiring to him. But then, when it comes to why does this customer choose Aeon as an energy provider, they said, well, because we have the best priced energy, and because we are a really reliable energy provider, because we're one of the largest suppliers. If we would offer this, then my client would definitely recommend us. Then transparent price was mentioned, and overview on the bill was mentioned as well. So from concluding from that, the needs were low prices, reliability, and transparency. And something that would have been very important in the future would be green energy. Well, now I've given my presentation before and shown you some of the insights that we got from the entrepreneurs themselves. And the top one is actually all very much filled out from a supplier's perspective. So it's about product sales, it's the customer being object instead of leading in the process. And well, you could wonder whether this is really something an entrepreneur would say, or whether it's based on assumptions from a company perspective. So what we did during the research was actually asking him to tell about his life. And what we found out was, well, what I just also presented to you, is that indeed his motto of life is that cooperation is very inspiring. But because that's his motto, he likes products or services that enable cooperation. For example, when it comes to green, which he does think indeed is important, but not in general, but local green initiatives. And therefore the qualities that he values are situations that have mutual benefit, a certain specialism, and it goes from one small company to another small company. What he, for example, is looking for is that companies or service providers listen to his interests and then offer some personal services. So his needs are more an active attitude, honest relationships, and a personal approach to providing services. And what he thinks is really important in the future is not specifically green energy, but openness and honesty about how energy is actually produced. So if you're going to, build a coal production plant, then please tell us why you do that and how much it consists of in the share of the whole energy supply, and explain. So it is transparency, but not within the bill, but within the product actually that you deliver. So you see kind of a difference between the company perspective on users' needs and their own stories actually. And now we're actually going to ask you kind of a difficult question, because the second step is to fill out something like this for your own customers. Only, you might have not spoken to your own customers on the level of needs and wishes and that kind of questions. So maybe you are going to put down some assumptions, but we can talk about it later if you like and discuss the differences. But we would like you now to do the second step of the exercise to see what exactly one of your individual customers would say, prefer, find important. So in the middle of the template sheet. Yeah, it is a difficult question. Het zal er tussenin zitten, dat kan niet.
Dat is het idee dat ze uiteindelijk wel dat is meenemen naar huis.
Ja. Eventjes vastleggen. Ja. Heb je dat gezien? Oh, you don't have a package. Oh, I'll get you one. Here you go.
alle maatregelen die ze al hebben, waardoor we tegen dit, maar wat we nu daarbij doen, zijn maar twee dingen. Eén is dat je hebt zeg maar, er komt een soort van framework uit, er komt een soort van definitie van massa waarbij je de basis zet. Je hebt dan secundaire dingen wat meer gaat over bruikbaarheid. En er zijn dingen tussen de box, zoals luxe. En wat wij merken, is dat je die laten ze best wel random. Dus soms zitten ze boven soms zitten ze ook onderin. En we slaan bijna andere dingen daar ook. En er zijn zeg maar generieke dingen, maar er zijn ook dingen die zeg maar heel erg contextspecifiek zijn. Dus wij merken dat je hebt enerzijds die massapyramide waar je maatregelen kan oriënteren. En anderzijds heb je in de corridor, als je ziet die weg, zowel het treinspoor als de autoweg, waar je veel gerelateerde problemen ziet. En als je zeg maar steeds een soort van framework hebt, dus je hebt die weg waar je aflegt en je hebt die massapyramide en die combineer je met elkaar, dan kan je dat elke corridor aan en je specifiek zijn. Maar je hoeft niet steeds een nieuw wiel uit. Precies. Ja, dus je hebt er gewoon een model en dat vul je steeds met specifieke informatie in. Dat werkt echt super. Die massapyramide is echt het is zo grappig. We hebben dan dit en wij kunnen dan vertellen dat je dit kan voortbouwen als fundament. Dus als jij een maatregel neemt die in de hoek zit, dus is there a national working for als jij any innovation
There is
like international level, not
yeah. No, there is some funding, governmental funding, so that's national. But the problem is that most of it is still very technology driven.
Like you mean for the technology product?
Yeah. So if you you can use this funding to innovate your company on a technological level. It is pretty. We hardly ever can use it because it's mostly, more the human side of innovation that we do. Yeah, so we. Yeah. Yes, it is. Basically, it's our background as well. At the Technical University in Delft, we studied industrial design engineering. But now it's more about services than yeah.
Bet Latvijā tāda forma vispār nav. Tas būtu jūsu, ne jau pašam, bet jūsu lieta.
She was wondering about this because we don't have such funding yet.
Okay, yeah.
All people are relying on just EU funding.
Yeah.
Some full funding from the state.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was also telling them about this initiative of the European Commission. Well, there is this European support program. I don't know how it's called. And it also sets some limitations because it has to be not only innovation, it also has to be
Yeah.
And then people are struggling.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also, one of the things why we hardly ever join such programs is because the administrative is so high that we're like, let's just do it ourselves. We'll find a client who will pay for it, then we can do it. Yeah.
My process needs money.
Yeah.
But I
okay, he has an idea, and it all stops at the moment when he needs financial support.
Yeah, but we never do the projects for ourselves. We only do it in combination with the client.
Se on viņu vienmēr klientu, kas par to maksā.
Yeah. Yeah, but then maybe this is the most important link. If this is a strong link, then you can do this together.
I am pensionary.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, maybe they don't care about your pension, but yeah. But do you have a lot of experience then? So that is valuable for the company. Yeah. Yeah.
He's saying that maybe it's important in the Netherlands, but they don't appreciate it very much.
No?
You have Benelux, 3 countries. We have Baltic states, but we have no links.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We thought it was quite interconnected. We thought Riga was like the center of the whole region.
Yeah, well, we want to think about it through that way, but it's not.
Not the same. That's a shame. Yeah.
Especially Estonia is like, let's say, far more developed than Latvia and Lithuania.
Really?
Well, they're kind of, I don't know, being more successful in things.
And they want to keep it to themselves, sort of.
Actually, yes, they're not very keen on cooperating.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what we notice is that the most important thing is just a personal network. Countries can work together all they want, but if they don't know you as a person and your network is strong, then that's the most important thing. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the Netherlands or abroad, or it doesn't matter. Yeah.
He's wondering if the government of the Netherlands could be able to, give us some lessons,
I will ask the Prime Minister.
He's saying that he asked our Prime Minister, he's not answering.
You are at his door every day.
He's wondering if you could give him another set so that he can show to his students.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So shall I continue to the third step? So, as I already said, the entrepreneur's perspective is, well, about many other things and then price. So price is not leading. The key in his context is actually the working on the same level, the mutuality. And what he needs is, an honest situation or an honest relation. Something that's personal, that speaks to him. Actually, what the entrepreneurs in the hospitality business also said when we did the project with Ian is we need a face when we want to cooperate, and the win-win situation. So the benefits on both sides should be really clear. And then the question is actually, if you have those stories and you know these elements of his context, what are then the values that are important to this customer? And, one little addition. What we have learned the last few years, we've been putting these techniques to practice for about 5 years now, is that it really doesn't matter if you have only a really small amount of people telling you this. We've been doing a lot of research actually into entrepreneurs for an insurance company. And, as you might know, insurance companies are focused on safety and no risks generally. So they wanted us to do everything double. So we did, but it was totally unnecessary because for every second session that we did with a specific group of entrepreneurs, the stories were different, but the insights, so the values that we got out of it were exactly the same. So, well, what I wanted to say with this is maybe you're thinking about an individual customer now, but if you speak to maybe 5 customers and you extract the values of them for your company or your product or service, you'll already, well, actually know everything you need to know about those people. So what is important to the entrepreneur when it comes to providing a business service? Personal relations are actually most important when it comes to running his business. So he'd rather cooperate with somebody he knows and he trusts than with somebody who, well, sells the cheapest products or says that they are the biggest. They really like openness about, in this case, energy products. So make me understand what it's well consists of instead of what the prices build up like. Cooperation really triggers him in any field, but also in the field of using energy, becoming green and that sort of stuff. Because he believes that everyone has his own expertise. And well, the funny thing is that especially the really small companies that we've been speaking to, those entrepreneurs, they really don't worry about competition because they are so confident about their own expertise and confident about their own, well, enthusiasm and their own network, that they don't really mind that there are other companies doing sort of the same, because he knows that one company has a specific expertise within the same field and another company can have another, and they can just, well, exist next to each other perfectly. So that cooperation is really, really important. He wants a service provider to, well, listen to a specific situation, but also to be work to the point and efficient. Energy still will stay like a low interest product, and therefore, since he's really busy with, well, the core of his company, of course, he doesn't want it to take too much time, unless, of course, the service provider has a way of turning it into the core of his business. Then it gets really interesting, especially in this part. And he just wants to build a successful future together. Actually, most entrepreneurs just really like what they do and see the value of it, and they don't really do it only to make a living, not just for the money. So the next step actually in the exercise is to look at what you filled out in the previous step and to see, and you can use again those stickers that we provided you with to see what are the values that are important to your customers. And perhaps we didn't provide you with all the right stickers because we don't know your customers, of course. So let's draw right and make something nice. Wil je nog wat drinken? Oh, ik heb het echt warm, hè? Wat? Ja. Nou, ik ga even een beetje thee halen. These are both tea, or is it coffee? Tea. Zal ik eerst zeg maar de laatste stap van EON laten zien en daarna de laatste stap. Ik heb eerst EON en dan zeggen we ja, dat is ook in van doen, ja. Ja, dat kunnen we dan wel vragen. Dan hebben we een linkje, dus dat komt wel goed. That's okay. Maybe to just tell you about the exercise, because the third step, or actually the last thing that I wanted to tell, is that well, if you look at the next slide. To the last bit, or are you still? Oh, I'll wait a little bit longer. Yeah. As you can, well, tell, obviously, your template sheet is full now, but there's one more thing that we, well, actually want to conclude this practical part with. And it's actually something to reconsider or to think about now. When you take these steps and when you involve your customers into your company processes, and when you start looking at things from their perspective, then that can really bring change to your business, because it gives you a basis to rethink your map of stakeholders, and in that sense actually redesign your business model and rethink the way you sell your product or services and the way you earn money from doing that. Because if, for example, Aon puts servicing an entrepreneur in the middle, then it becomes clear that the company Aon is not just the salesman sending a contract out and a customer putting back a complaint. But if you see it from the customer's perspective, then you'll notice that cooperation is much more important, and Aon can actually link to those customers in a very different way. Perhaps they should not put their salesmen forward and their call center as a backup for complaints, but they should put their brand central. Like, we are Aon, and we are actually in the Benelux a small company, but with the big German, reliable and stable company behind us. And actually the whole thing that was going on the other side with the infrastructure and the production facilities is nothing more than just a utility going towards the customer, and the whole value creation is actually going on in this bit instead of on the other side. So looking at it from this perspective, it gives you actually all the ingredients to not change your service or business, but rethink the way you connect the different stakeholders and rethink or redesign your business actually.
And this also shows that in the previous business model, Aon said that their call center and their sales department was not the central part of their company. But if you see that it's the most valuable moment of contact with your customers, you better invest in this department as much as you can, because you need a certain type of person here. Because if it's all about personal relation, then it might be really important to put very social people here, you know, who can visit people. Or if you're entering the phone, that you have people there with a certain level or a certain educational background.
Or a certain specialism, because that's what they appreciate.
So, based upon the perspective of your customer, you can rethink your entire business model and see what you need to serve your customer best. So if you look back at your first map of stakeholders, you might, if you spoke to one of your customers, rethink your entire map of stakeholders. Should it look different maybe? Or should you interchange different values? Maybe it's not about money or information, but maybe it's about different things.
So did any of you discover something like that doing the exercise? Does anybody want to say something about that? Yes?
Yeah, I basically discovered that I assume a lot of things about the client, that I think that they're like me.
Yeah.
And in many cases it is so, but this exercise kind of makes me think that maybe I should listen more and shut up more often.
Yeah. One thing that we often do, when we do the exercise of, the assumption map actually about the customer, is that we make employees of the company, for example Aon, fill it out for a specific customer, and then we hand out little green and red stickers to put a red sticker on everything that's, if you're really honest, actually an assumption, and a green sticker on everything that's something that you really heard from a customer. And one time, people often think it's a little bit mean, because it is actually. It's quite confronting, but one time there was this guy who said, okay, can I have one green sticker, because I'm only really sure about his name. And well, that was, he was being really truthful, which was really nice, but that's true what you're saying. And something else that also plays a big role, I think, is those people might be, your customers might be a lot like you, but when you think about them from your product's perspective, that might blur your view also. We have an example, for example, from a big transportation company in the Netherlands, and they have this special deal with Shell for their gas prices, but then the truck drivers need to refuel at the plant, so not at a Shell station somewhere along the road. And they just couldn't get the truck drivers to do that. So they thought, from the internal perspective, okay, let's do a campaign, an internal campaign about the prices of the gas on the plant. And eventually somebody asked just one truck driver why he was using the gas station alongside the road. And then he said, well, if I tank there, if I get the fuel there, then I get those seals and I can collect towels for my wife. So then you know that whatever internal campaign is not going to work, because they know that it's cheaper inside, but they have a different value that makes them, go get their gas somewhere else. So sometimes it's really small personal things that will change your ideas about how to reach people. Does anybody else want to say something about what they put down? Or do you have any questions? Because yeah.
I know, when you look at that one specific customer and see what he values, how do you evaluate what's really important and what's not that important? Who can you say that that's for all customers and that's for that one specific? And
well, in different ways. Speak to a few more, because then you might hear the same stories or different stories, but with the same values behind it. Moreover, another thing, what we find very important as designers, is that we are, not in the basis, not interested in the truth, but in getting inspired to design new things. So that's just a small shift of why you do research. So that's maybe also an answer to your question.
Thank you.
So is it that you're saying that as a designer you have the bias to design?
A bias?
Bias.
In what way?
That you are inclined in every situation to design something.
Yeah, well
Instead
actually
of,
we are.
Maybe you can, otherwise you could skip this, you know what I'm saying? That
Yeah, but it also
designers
depends.
like to design.
Yeah, they do.
And if maybe a situation does not require designing, but it requires more investigation.
Yeah, but it also depends on how you define design. Because to us, we're thinking quite freely, I think, about what design is, and just the principle of design thinking is design as well. Just approaching a problem with an open mind and not starting with a solution at forehand is also a way of designing. For example, your first step of the exercise, making this map of stakeholders, because you are putting something from your head onto the paper, you are already doing actually the first step of making a new design, because putting it out of your head enables you to rethink it and to change it also. So we don't think of design as, form giving a specific product, but it could also be designing a new process or a new kind of organization.
How to apply this method if clients if they live in a different country and it is really different?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because the triangle that Sanna presented in the morning with the what, the why and the how, in this case we mostly focus on the why and then translate it into how. But in such a case, I think the what is much more important, because there's a lot of research being done quantitatively on cultural differences, and I think in such a case you should investigate on that really thoroughly first, because otherwise you might also misunderstand stories that are being told by your customers.
But this also has to do with the shift from, instead of just designing a product, taking the product user interaction into account and also the context. And if you look at context not only from a surrounding point of view, but from an experience point of view as well,
and cultural.
Then cultural is cultural experiences and differences play an important role as well. So, for example, one of our clients, they make baby products, and they make it for first their market was Europe, and then they expanded to America as well. And their cultural differences play a really important role. So, for example, they made this baby bottle, so like the bottle for milk, and they made a black one. And in Europe it was a great hit, People thought it was really designery. But in America it was like not done. So it's a big difference. And you have to find out how people experience your, so for example, in the case of making products for babies, it's highly emotional experience. So especially in that case, really important to investigate into the cultural differences as well.
Yeah, and do it beforehand, because, well, they discovered it when the product was already there. And so they had been developing it and producing it and transporting it, and then they discovered, oh, they don't want to buy it. So that's, well, maybe a little bit late concerning the expenses that were already made.
Yes.
Yes.
How do you find the people that are willing to talk to you, basically? Do you have you had cases where your employee goes to the client and he says like, oh, why are you asking these personal questions?
Well, we do explain before we like really invite somebody what we are going to do, and that we really like to hear their personal stories. And it also really depends on the subject of the project, how personal it gets. Because for an entrepreneur talking about his business and about service providers, it is about personal stories, but it's not really personal in an, well, emotional kind of way. But, well, for example, when it comes to baby products, it's a different thing, of course, because that's much more of an emotional subject. But in general, the more personal the subject is, the more willing people are to talk about it. Because that's something that's close to their hearts, and therefore they well, like to share stories about it.
But how come they don't consider you a stranger? For instance, intruding? Where is the line in that? How you
well,
that?
Often we try to find people through, well, either our network or our client's network. So, yeah, that
with a reference, basically.
Yeah.
That's always easier, yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, and besides that, we're always telling them the higher goal of the research. So we're not asking them bluntly what they think about something or what their experience is, but we let them tell their story. And some people stay very factual, and then you ask some questions, and that's also fine, you know. But many people start telling their personal stories themselves without asking. Maybe they just need one triggering sticker, and then they start talking. You know, this reminds me of this and this, and then.
But we phone them, and then we visit them with a little package, and then they see the package and they feel like, ooh, I get a present, and then they fill it out for a week, and then we see them again. So we also get to know them quite well in such a process, and I think that helps as well.
Yeah, we invest a lot of time making sure that they come and that they visit the session. So we always never get people who are not like no shows. We don't have them, and unless people are sick or something. But they always come because we call them and we come to their home, bring them the package, they show us around. So we invest a lot of time because we ask a lot from them as well. So we think it's honest to also invest a lot of time.
And something that really motivates people as well is the idea of helping to create a new product or a new service. That really speaks to...
that their view will count.
Sorry?
They're happy that their view will count.
Yeah, exactly. That they are heard, but also that they can think along with this process of creating something new.
Yeah, so one of our mottos, why we started doing projects like this, is that everyone's the expert of his or her own experience. And as long as you keep that in mind, everyone really likes to talk about that. So if you address them as experts, they will tell you expert stories. And the expert stories are always personal. But
you must have also had cases where you hear something really stupid, the person doesn't understand how something works. He has just some sort of idea. You know what I mean? No?
No, because they always tell stories from their own experiences, so it is always true.
Yeah, the story, exactly, yeah. You don't ask.
Yeah, we don't ask for ideas.
Works,
No, and that's a later stadium. So
sometimes we do ask for ideas, but then it's about the reasoning behind their ideas.
Yeah.
So if they're saying, maybe you know the example of Henry Ford saying, if I ask for what people want, they would say faster horses. You know, but it's not about that. It's what they're saying then is, I want to get from A to B faster.
Yeah.
And then you, as a designer, can come up with a solution to that.
Yeah, which you did.
Which you did, in the car.
Yeah.
So, like, one question, do you have people from with other backgrounds, like business or, I don't know?
Not now.
Just like from designer's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. At the moment, we're all like, equal. We're 5 now and a few interns. But actually, the schedule that we made for Aeon to decide on which participants we should take is something that counts for us as well, because we noticed that 5 the same is enough. So if we need more people to do the work, then we should probably pick people from other areas or fields of expertise.
But what we do now is, at the start of each project, we form a project team, and in that we internally within the company we work for, we try to pick out the right person. So there's, for example, a marketeer, and he's an expert in marketing, and then there's a salesperson, and different perspectives. So we don't have to have them ourselves, but they're already there, and the resources are already in the company.
Or we find an alliance with another company. For example, the last year we also did some work for an insurance company, which is quite specific because there's so much regulations concerning insurance. And then we have worked with a company who does financial consultancy, especially in the insurance business, to make sure that we would not end up with something that is really not feasible in more of a law or regulation perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, let me see. I think I have one more slide.
We also did a bit of step into the shoes of, is this right or is this wrong?
Did we say something really funny? So, thank you for coming here today, and we can have a long chat now together, I think, about everything we've been telling and stuff that you want to know.
And otherwise, our contact information was in the package, so if you have any questions later, then please email us.
I have one question.